deeply indoctrinated Western religious belief that pictures the debate like this. It says there are two sides, Israel and the Palestinians. The United States is an honest broker trying to bring them together and reach a solution and so on. That's real religious faith. I mean, the kind that you rarely get in organized religions because the evidence is so vastly against it. It takes deep, irrational commitment to power to even entertain that thought. I mean, if there were serious negotiations going on, they would be run by some neutral party that has some international respect, like maybe Brazil. And on one side would be Israel and the United States. On the other side, it'd be the rest of the world. I mean, asking the United States to mediate is kind of like asking Iran to mediate in Sunni-Shia conflicts in Iraq. Yeah, we'd laugh, you know. And we would laugh about this too if we weren't so deeply indoctrinated. For 35 years, the United States has been blocking the international consensus on a political settlement. How can it be a negotiator? How can it be a mediator? I mean, it's just this blind faith in power that's so deeply indoctrinated, embedded in you know, the intellectual world that prevents us from seeing such obvious facts. I mean, the U.S. and Israel, the way what you read in the newspapers is that the Palestinians are insisting on preconditions for negotiation. Israel says, no, we don't want any preconditions. That's not true. The U.S. and Israel insist on crucial preconditions. One of them is that the U.S. must be the mediator, which already undercuts the legitimacy of any negotiations. The other precondition is that Israel must be permitted to continue its settlements. They're all illegal. There's no doubt about that. Every relevant international authority has determined that the International Court of Justice, the Security Council repeatedly, in fact, Israel itself admitted as far back as 1967, yeah, of course they're illegal, all of them, but we're going to go ahead anyway. Israel and the U.S. insist that they be not only that their presence be a condition for negotiations, but that they must be permitted to expand. Now, theoretically, the U.S. claims to oppose that, but that's pure theory. When push comes to shove, the U.S. backs it. In fact, it did it pretty dramatically at the United Nations February 2011, when a Security Council resolution came along calling on Israel to stop expanding the settlements. That's official U.S. policy. It was vetoed by the Obama administration. They won't permit it, you know. So you really have to have, going back to faith, you have to have a lot of faith and not to see what's happening in front of your eyes. England is worse. Tony Blair has just made a total fool of himself on this. He's a laughingstock in most of the region. So you can't really begin to talk about these questions until you kind of extricate yourself from a lot of illusions.